Okay, now we can.
Welcome to the space where ambition meets alignment and success stops costing you your sanity. I'm Janessa Finley Ford. I'm a former perfectionist, recovering people pleaser most days, and one of your guides in ditching the burnout without dimming your brilliance. I blend spiritual laws with neuroscience and soul. So you can rise, recalibrate, and remember who you are in this life. And I don't do this mission alone. So let's meet the other woman behind the show.
And I'm SJ. I'm a certified crystal healer and shamanic earth and energy medicine practitioner. I blend science, spirit, and strategy together to rewire your energetic patterns for peace, potency, and purpose.
Last show, we went into the topic of conflict from the angle that it's an advanced leadership skill. And when approached with a higher level of consciousness, it can actually lead to connection. And today, we're going to go even deeper. And we plan to hit maybe a chord or a nerve or three, because we're going to get into the Enneagram and what looks like it could be cold behavior on the surface isn't usually about your tone. It's about regulation. It's about your coherence, about what going on in your inner landscape, as I like to refer to it as, and whether or not your nervous system is steady enough to hold clarity without collapsing into approval seeking or flaring into control. These are the two things that happen all the time. We want people to approve of what we do and how we do it, or we want to control a situation so that we're safe. And that's where most people miss the mark. Because leadership does not break down in the moment of conflict. It actually breaks down in the unseen layer underneath it. The micro spike of defensiveness that comes before words are even spoken. That subtle fear of being disliked that creeps in beneath the surface that you don't acknowledge before you react. The attachment to looking to being competent or brilliant or um, embodied, and the avoidance of discomfort. These are all factors that stir the energetics and make you wobble beneath the surface before you even display a behavior. And people feel it long before they analyze your words. You can say the right sentence and still lose authority if your system is scrambling for that feeling of safety that we all need to be grounded into the moment. And this is where the Enneagram becomes our ally. And it's more than personality language. It's a map of the distortions that are going to occur if we don't stay conscious to them. Each type has a specific way that it softens, sharpens, over explains, over accommodates, withdraws, or intensifies when conflict hits. And quite honestly, just that list, I feel like, of course, it came from me because I think I do like three out of the five on the regular occasion if I just run on autopilot. So on the surface, it looks like it's a communication style, but underneath it's a strategy to protect your identity. And the irony of it all is the very move that feels warm or fair or strategic or thoughtful or optimistic or powerful or peaceful to you, maybe the exact move that lowers trust in the room with your team. Because firmness, when it's regulated, isn't cruelty. And clarity, when truly embodied, when your energy is in alignment and you're not wobbling, isn't actually cold either. So today we're going to unpack this tension. And in the Stronger Together community, I talk all the time about how we have to hold two opposing, like the tension of two opposing truths at the same time to really be in our power. And then we're going to get into that in a nuanced way within the personality system of the Enneagram to really demonstrate how we can lead through conflict by actually embracing something that's going to feel harsh or cold or unnatural, but it's actually going to give you the edge and the precision and the respect that you've been seeking in your leadership. So if you've ever left a hard conversation thinking, I said everything right, so why does this still feel off? This conversation is absolutely for you. We're going to talk about the unseen layer of leadership, and what it really takes to be taken seriously. So that's where we're headed. Grab a pen, grab some paper if you're a note taker, because I think this is going to have a lot of info for you to unpack. And while you're grabbing that pen, paper, or beverage, I'm going to tell you a funny story because we love to start our show with a funny story. So I was on a call with a couple of my friends. One lives in the UK and one lives in New Zealand. We were together on a Zoom call over the weekend, chatting and catching up. And of course, in New Zealand, like halfway across the world, the seasons are opposite. Everything is opposite. So it is almost fall, it's ending summer there, and we're nearing spring here. So they loved seeing the snow that we have here. They could have it, but my friend told me about the cucumbers she just got from her garden when she was out gardening. And she said, yeah, I just got my first cucumber. Jenna said, didn't you have a cucumber story? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I did because last summer I had a garden full of dicks. And you obviously have a garden full of vaginas, so you're going to have a very abundant harvest. This is amazing for you. And we had a good laugh. So if all of you are new here, last summer I had all the flowers on my cucumbers in the world, and I told this story on a previous show, but I don't remember which one. And every day I would go out to my garden and there I am, and I'm looking at all these yellow, beautiful flowers, not figuring out why my cucumbers are not creating cucumbers. Like the plants aren't giving me cucumbers. Well, I had too many males in the garden. That is the short form of that story. But what I love is that that story has made people laugh and they have not forgotten it. And then when they got their first cucumber, it was something they thought about. So I love that. I hope it brings a smile to your face. And I'm pretty sure if you talk about dicks and vaginas in the wrong place, you're probably going to have some conflict, but not here, not today. We're going to dive in and start with the challenger, the Enneagram 8, in discussing this cold. And it's really like starting with the Enneagram 8 might be the one exception because I really feel like the Enneagram 8 is already very direct, sometimes overly so. And I'm not sure that you can take an ice queen and make her colder for it to land. So this is the one caveat. And I am so curious, SJ, what you have for the Enneagram 8 yourself with what you've experienced and what you've seen. But I literally couldn't come up with anything for them to embrace that might feel cold to them just because they're naturally filled with so much force behind their communication, behind how they move around in the world. They're already super direct. They can be very, edgy in that pointed, directed way.
Mhm.
They just cut to the chase and like get to it already. And so, really, what the 8, in my humble opinion, needs to embrace to be able to fortify their leadership is measured restraint. And they know when to harness the reins just a little bit. And so, instead of taking approach such as identifying that's unacceptable, their growth edge may be to approach it from here's the issue, here's the boundary, honor it. So there's no intensity spike, there's just calm, and calm is power. And it will actually feel to the Enneagram 8 like they're holding back their strength. But what it does is amplify it. So SJ, can you come up with anything that might seem cold to the Enneagram 8 that was clarity? Or are you standing in the same field I am looking at this as being maybe the only outlier in the pack?
Yeah, I mean, the Enneagram 8, let me just start with this saying that when Janessa came up with this concept, I found it very difficult to tap into. I could see how I am cold. I'm an Enneagram 7 for any of the new listeners. Definitely hardcore into that wing 8 for sure. So, like, I feel all of the Enneagram 8-ness within this. And slowing down is going to feel cold. Like pausing for others to have the space to relay their sentiment, feeling, thoughts, whatever is going to feel a little bit cold to the Enneagram 8, but it's going to ease the tension in the room. So even if like the pause is difficult, you could take a baby step and have a statement that says, I'm going to be direct because I care about solving this, or I'm going to be direct because I care about you. So even if like you find that pause to allow the other person to relay whatever they're doing, that simple statement, I think can kind of ease some of the blow for how the other enneatypes are going to feel. Um, I took a little bit different direction with this too, of like how, because I think sometimes we don't realize when we are seen as cold by other people, or when other people feel like we are being, I don't know, rude even perhaps, like a little brash. Like I feel like all of those are that. So I know for me, coldness is lost upon me real quick because of my directness. Like I have a hard time understanding why that felt abrasive, perhaps. So with the Enneagram 8, some of the micro behaviors that can feel cold to the other Enneatypes that you may not realize are interrupting to cut to the point, leaning forward with intense eye contact that never breaks, kind of like you're a predator and everybody's the prey. Lower vocal tone that is really controlled but super firm. Like when eights take a presence in a room, which is always, they always have very firm and a low pitch to the way that they speak, which can feel pretty heavy, probably, to lots of Enneatypes. Quick decisions without processing out loud is another thing. Lots of people process their thoughts out loud or have a conversation that is collaborative out loud, whereas an eight is going to jump to, this is the decision, do this, without any sort of collaboration or interaction back and forth. So there's little to no visible hesitation that other Enneatypes can pick up on, which can feel cold to a lot of Enneatypes. When the eight probably is like, listen, I'm just being efficient and we don't need all the fluff, right? They're not trying to be cold, but those are the micro behaviors that I think can feel pretty cold. I think sevens fall into a lot of those as well, if I'm honest. But yeah, I think if you can't find the pause right away because that feels too cold for you, Enneagram eights, those simple statements of the reason why you're being direct can help soften some of it without diluting your authority. Because you're never going to be like, oh my God, I care about what you think in this moment. No, you probably don't care about what they think in this moment. So I don't want you to be fake, right? And I don't want you to feel like you're diluting your authority, but just taking a moment to have a very simple one sentence statement that starts the caveat of why you're going to be so direct can help soften some of that coldness.
Yeah, I really love the body language that you bring in. Like, as you're talking, the image I got is like the person who like looks over the top of their glasses at you. Like, if a
Exactly.
look could kill, this is gonna come from the Enneagram 8, probably. And they can command a room through their body language or those
Yes.
subtle cues, such as looking over the top of their glasses, for sure. Do you want to take us into the
Yeah, let's
nine?
move into the nines. So, some of the micro behaviors that the Enneagram nines can display that could feel cold to others. This one was so funny because I definitely took Dustin into consideration with like all of these, of how like they can feel very dismissive often, which can feel cold, right? Nodding but not engaging in the conversation, saying it's fine too quickly and then coming back later and it not being fine, delayed responses. Soft tone with minimal pushback can also feel very detached and like they don't really care about the conversation that's happening. But definitely, I think for me, that first one of agreeing now, but being resentful about the decision later can feel very, very cold to the other Enneatypes when they're dealing with an Enneagram 9. And the Enneagram 9, of course, is just trying to regulate themselves, possibly through numbing or, distracting. But when someone reaches for clarity and meets that like fog of it just feels like distance and like detachment too. So something that could feel cold to the Enneagram 9 is that action statement too of I need a minute to think about this before I decide or before I respond. Like, I need space for me to be able to process this, could feel cold. Whereas a lot of Enneatypes are really going to appreciate the thoughtfulness that you are taking a moment to think about it before you respond. I mean, I would love to tell you guys just to jump right into no. Just say no like 25 times a day and see how it feels, even though that probably is going to feel super cold to an Enneagram 9. So that baby step of like, give me 15 minutes even to think about this before I decide can ease you into that straight up, no, not about that. Because you guys know when it's no. You just don't like to tell the rest of us no very much.
So the thing I really notice about the nines where they show up cold, sometimes group settings. So you have a team meeting, you have a group together, and the nine really fails to understand that their opinions, their energy, like everything is that they have is equal to everyone else there. So they will be more reserved in that group setting. And they don't want to create any kind of disruption. So they'll avoid. And so we're in, a meeting with the nines, and they're just in agreement. Everything is just, yep, I agree. This is good. And then we get out of the meeting and, oh, can I just get a minute of your time? Because actually, I was thinking that pretty much the opposite of most of the things that were said is my actual honest truth. And so here's this idea or this suggestion. Oh my gosh, this is so inefficient for an Enneagram 1. Like, no, tell me this in front of the group. Let's all like mastermind it and think about it together. Don't sit there and tell me everything is good. And then when you feel like it's safe one to one, let the like reality out. Just do that in the moment. Like it's not going to cause a disruption. And if it does, good, great. Like let's work it out together as a team as well. So as SJ said, the nines kind of live that go along to get along um, philosophy or mantra. And the resentment is building within while they're doing that. So you're probably going to hear a lot on the surface of it's fine. Or if you are a nine, I'm speaking to you because you're saying it's fine when if you checked in with your body, there is nothing that is fine right now. So options, because sometimes when we're building new communication styles, new neural pathways within our brain, doing something a different way, it's really helpful to hear options of language that you can use. So that is why I'm literally offering a solution or a different way to approach something with a mini script in this episode. So another way to approach this is to simply say this isn't aligned and we need to address it now. It doesn't have to be disruptive. It doesn't have to be aggressive. It doesn't have to be conflict oriented. It's just your truth. And the beautiful thing about the nines is your energy is so soft that when you present your truth, as long as it's not in the passive aggressive, out of balance manner, it's really easy to receive the truth. I get some of my best feedback and ideas from nines.
Mhm.
And yeah, they almost always come in the one-to-one setting. And I'm like, oh my gosh, just spill the beans in the team meeting. Come on. But to a nine, if you are to say, this isn't aligned and we need to address it now, that might feel aggressive to you, which is where you're going to have to work to align your energy to not have that wobble. But the gift it's going to give yourself and everybody around you later is that it prevents the explosion because that resentment cannot continue to build. So, moving into the Enneagram 1, oh, guys, I guess that's me. So, the Enneagram 1 are reformer, those personalities who want to make things better and better. They look at the duality of good and bad. They're really hypercritical in their inner landscape and their inner voice. And they're pretty sensitive to error or making mistakes, and they'll instantly move into correction, into improving, into fixing, into refining. And that will pull them out of them, us, me, pulls me out of sensation, out of feeling, out of the emotional experience. And so it's a way of bypassing that. But in leadership and conflict, the Enneagram 1 will fall into a trap of over-explaining to justify fairness. And literally, with my team, I draw names out of a hat to ensure that things are fair. And even today, like this task that I assigned was done so by random assignment, and it still upset people. And I was like beyond myself because I'm like, oh my gosh, there's no fairer way for me to even do this than essentially randomly pulling names out of a hat, which is what I'm doing, and it still upsets someone. And so I'm falling into this very trap that I'm sharing with you guys, which is stopping the justification. And so instead of getting caught up in the I want to make sure this feels fair, that it's even, that it's just, and here's why, and I'm going to give you the whole backstory. Simply say, this is a standard. It wasn't met. Here's what needs to change. Or in my situation today, if I had just said, we rotate, you're up, it is what it is. Like, just move on. And it's going to feel abrupt if you're an Enneagram 1. That feels very abrupt to me and cold. So cold to people versus like, oh, let me do all of the over explaining and backstory so that you understand and would have come to the same conclusion I came to had you lived in my brain. No. The other thing, it might not feel like it's thorough enough, and that's okay. Because clarity without the over defending, the over communication, the over everything, people pleasing, the over people pleasing. Also, why I said maybe I'm a recovering people pleaser some days, most days. Because clarity actually communicates your authority, and over defending, over explaining dilutes it.
Yeah, so you stole mine for the Enneagram 1, but that's okay. I'll come up with another one. I actually think that for Enneagram 1s, allowing themselves to just give direction in writing via email, te like Teams, whatever you guys use, Skype, right? Whatever that mode is, can often feel cold to the Enneagram 1, but actually less cold to the other Enneatypes because you don't really over explain in writing as much, right? Like you give a direction and it's just done. And there's no visual aspect to it. I call Janessa's like initiating stoic mode when there are uncomfortable situations where, like, if there's not a fan behind her or something moving behind her, you literally would not be able to tell that her screen had not froze. Like, she can literally make every cell freeze in her body to where, like, it's just non-moving. To where often, like, that physical response can feel cold, whereas, like, that's gone if it's just in writing, like a hey, here's what we're doing today, goodbye, right? Like, I mean, I feel like you guys are super fair as ones, of course, with everything you do. And I find it so humorous listening to sometimes Janessa's stories because she's so kind with her delivery. And then often, maybe it's not received well. And I'm like, well, you're so much nicer and way less direct than I would have been in that situation. So they should be thankful.
No, I probably need to be more direct.
Yeah, it's
And
the
also,
opposite.
the stoicness, oh my gosh, you hit it on the head. You're gonna love this story. Maybe this is our funny story for today, but I have a colleague that last week, I don't know how Poker Face, Lady Gaga's Poker Face, my poker face, got stuck in my head. And I mentioned something about it, and they're like, well, I mean, I can see why. It's totally fitting. And so every day since then, they've been writing Poker Face lyrics on my on my board outside my office. And I'm just like, I can't shake it. It's true. Like we just have the stoic poker face. It is what it is.
You do. Yeah. And I actually think that most of your micro behaviors, unlike a lot of the other enneatypes, are physical. Like it's the tightening of the jaw, it's the sitting up straighter, it's the like prim and proper, like that initiated stoic mode where like I think it's actually more that for you all than necessarily like things you say or do. Sure, like correcting of language is a thing, but I feel like you personally are so self-aware that I don't feel like you correct language like a lot of Enneagram ones do. And often like that controlled emotional expression. So like you can say things like, "Oh my gosh, that's terrible," but you say it so controlled. It's like, is it? Maybe it's not that bad. I don't know now. Like that was like she has her shit together. Like she feels very like solid in her controlled emotional expression. I don't know if that's like maybe I'm the crazy person. So those were the only ones I could come up with for like the micro behaviors of the Enneagram 1 because when I'm surrounded by ones. Most of my best friends are ones, right? Like the people that I adore being around are ones. And it's always a physical reaction to stuff that feels cold to me personally. I know you all, so I find it funnier because I just know that's like a stress response and not really like I'm trying to be mean to you, like an Enneagram 7 is when we freeze. Like we try to initiate stoic mode so that you stop doing a thing, which is not the intent of the Enneagram 1 at all. So
I
those are the
definitely,
micros.
sorry.
Go ahead.
I love your micros, and I definitely used to correct grammar. In fact, I have a friend who will still like text me and be like, I'm using text to talk, so please don't grammatically correct me or anything.
I know it's destroyed. I don't care.
I'm like, I'm over it. I moved on a couple years ago. It's no longer a hobby. It's
I have
fine.
evolved from this. Okay, moving into, let's go to the heart points. Let's go to the Enneagram Type 2. The micro behaviors that came up for me with the Enneagram Type 2s are offering solutions before being asked. Now, this is a weird 7 thing too, but 2s are always like, I can help, let me take that, let me do this. And then they're like overtask and then resentful about it. And that can feel very cold to other Enneatypes. Or like, if you took the task and then 2 days later, you're like, I actually didn't get to it. That's the part where like the resentment, I think, builds on both sides. And the other Enneatypes can feel like, well, that was pretty cold to just not do it, even though you said you would help, right? Also, checking in repeatedly, emotional tone shifts when they're unappreciated. Like the tone of an Enneagram 2 is one of the most interesting things to me of how, one, their voices get deeper and also slower. Like their intonation is a lot slower when you can tell like it hit a chord. Over involvement in trying to help solution things that it's not really not yours to like deal with, right? Like if somebody else is beefing with another person, they're gonna do the weird stuff. No sense to get yourself involved if, you've tried and failed 25 times with helping them see the light. Like let them see the dark, I guess. I don't know. But also those like subtle guilt signals of like, oh, I took this and this and this on, and like now I couldn't take my dog to the dog park today. Like there's just a little bit of undertone of the other Enneatype should feel guilty for how much they helped us, but we're not returning in the same way. So while the Enneagram 2 thinks that they're just being super supportive with all of those things, the other Enneatypes can feel that coldness through different things, right? Like some of them probably even think you're manipulating them through niceness, which is not your intent at all, right? Or, you want something. And Enneagram 3 may be like, this is definitely transactional. Why are they helping me? Like, this is transactional warmth, is how that could code as well. The twos, I think, really for a two, pausing before offering help to anybody is it's going to feel cold to you, but like it's going to be received with authenticity too from the other Enneatype. So just pausing and giving yourself a hot minute to say, can I really take this on and not be overburdened? So I'm not saying say no right away. I'm just saying don't say yes in the first like immediate option. Or if like at twos in group settings, the two is always the first one to volunteer. If somebody's like, oh, is there anyone who can help us with blah blah blah? The twos are like, ah, and everybody else is like, oh, please, no, let them do it for sure. So maybe not being the first to volunteer for help, like just allowing a hot minute. Now, if it's something you're passionate about, if it's a hell yes, then of course do it, right? Like we've talked about that too. Like be really sure about your yes before you volunteer to do something. And really offering things freely, but not out of obligation. So don't say yes because you feel like you're obligated to help in those moments. Like if you are into muscle testing, which if you're not, you should get into it. Asking the question of, am I doing this out of obligation or because I truly want it is going to really help you discern, is this a time that I should volunteer or should I, give a space for somebody else to step into that role?
Yeah. Our twos are so in tune to what's going on around them emotionally that their attention instantly goes outward. And so they will read disappointment in a room quickly, like
Mhm.
instantly.
Yep.
And because of that, they really will struggle with disappointing others, especially in conflict or high stakes conversations. And what will really be the growth edge is letting someone else be temporarily upset and working through their process and being able to just hold space for them and for that experience and time. And what will happen with the Enneagram 2s, I definitely absorb this from my two wing, is that softening that happens. I totally understand, and I know you've been doing so much. Let me be so empathetic with you right now. I'm going to soften this. And so when we get to the part of the action, you'll feel seen and heard and maybe even understood. And instead, just no rescuing, no emotional cushioning, no softening the blow, just really genuine. Like, I value you. This behavior doesn't work. It needs to shift. And that is going to be something that may feel so cold, but it's going to be so clear. And the other person is going to know exactly what you're saying. They're not going to get lost in the empathy and the softening of it. And then twos, you might leave a situation and be like, man, I've addressed this before. How are we having the same conversation? Like, what didn't they understand about what I said last time? Let me tell you, they didn't understand all of your empathy. They didn't understand all of your understanding and all of your seeing them. They didn't understand that this was really, truly like, this is where it needs to shift. Let's make it happen. So it might feel unloving, but it's going to build respect for you.
I so agree. Threes are so interesting. Like, I feel like often the threes and the sevens can look a lot alike from outward. So when I was tapping into their micro behaviors, there's a lot of overlap between a three and a seven's micro behaviors that feels cold to the other Ennea types. So things like redirecting emotion to outcomes, like, oh, let's not talk about how it feels. Let's talk about how we're going to get to Z. Threes do this interesting thing of speaking in bullet points too, which I personally love it. A one probably loves it when they get there, but it probably feels very cold when a three is just like, hey, this, this, final point. Um, they have minimal vulnerability often, where like they'll definitely talk about all of your stuff, but not really talk about themselves. So like you can find that a lot with threes. And then of course speeding up discussions, like move faster and smiling through tension. I feel like that's a seven move too. But threes definitely like lean into their charismatic side a lot to just kind of schmooze their way into like not so heavy so that we can get past these yuck emotions that we're detached from and into like what are we actually going to do about this. But often like that, while the three probably thinks I'm just keeping this productive, like I just want to move forward, the other Enneatypes can read that as you're hiding something or you're emotionally unavailable or you don't need me or you're pressuring me, like you're pressuring me to just move faster. The three is really honestly trying to regulate through competence, but when efficiency replaces attunement, the warmth is just sucked out of the room to where they can feel very cold and unreachable. So for a three, just taking that time to even say, like, I know this feels tense and I'm not trying to rush you. However, my priority focus is X. A simple statement of recognizing the tension, also that you are rushing yourself and not them. Like you want to move forward, and it's not that you're trying to rush them through their feelings. However, like this is the priority, can definitely help. But of course, if a three can lean into truly just being vulnerable about how they feel in the moment and saying things like, yeah, this sucks. This is terrible. And just allowing that space of nothing solving, nothing moving forward, no proving that you can solve it or figure it out, just sitting in that, like, yeah, this is awful. This is really horrible. And allowing the other Enneatypes to process the way that they process. It's probably going to feel super cold to an Enneagram 3 to not just move forward into how do we just be successful with whatever this problem is? Like, how do we solve it? But just taking that pause, which I think this applies to sevens too, of just acknowledging, like, this is terrible and not doing anything else except that.
Yeah, you definitely nailed it. The threes are sensitive to evaluation and they want to maintain not only image, but I would also insert momentum because
Mhm.
they're going to achieve. So they want to feel like they have that continuous momentum moving them forward and carrying them. And so, very similar to what SJ said, I feel like what is going to feel cold and unnatural is calling out a failure directly. And instead of reframing it as a growth opportunity, I feel as though ones will do this in some ways too, as an opportunity to make things better. Okay, we can improve it now. Like the threes version of that is going to be a growth, to have faster achievement, whatnot from that. When really simply owning the fact that this didn't land, we missed the mark, and we just need to own it is going to make them really credible. It's going to feel like vulnerability, and threes don't love vulnerability because vulnerability feels like weakness to them. So when they can get out of their comfort zone, what they're going to elicit from people around them is credibility, which is really powerful, especially when you're leading. So moving into our Enneagram fours, the fours make meaning out of everything, and that's really kind of their sensitivity. Is that there's just this depth of emotional truth, and they are authenticity detectors, if you will. Um, they really will intensify the feelings. They will identify them before other people are feeling them. And their expression can replace being grounded for sure. And so through conflict, leading through conflict, what might feel cold, where the Enneagram for the individualist, they feel deeply and they want their emotional nuance to be acknowledged. They want other people to really lean into what they're feeling and what's going on in the internal landscape because it's very important to them. They actually need to embrace their growth edge is in separating their feelings from their decisions and being able to communicate that confidently. So instead of mm, the approach of saying, I feel how complicated this is, or I feel whatever, and focusing on the emotional nuance and inviting other people into the emotional soup, just simply saying, I hear the emotions here and the decision stands. I hear the emotion here, and here's my truth. This is just what we need to address. So it's going to feel emotionally dismissive to an Enneagram 4, while other people will perceive it as stabilizing to them because they know where things are headed and they don't have to swim through that ambiguous and cloudy, murky water of emotions to get there.
Yeah. Fours are so interesting for an Enneagram 7. You guys don't really feel cold. Like when I tapped into the Enneagram 4, at least for me, they don't feel cold. They feel overly warm. Like
Mhm.
the intensity of their emotional depth was the part that caused the distance, which is usually coldness, right? Like that's where I felt the distance. The micro behaviors of an Enneagram 4 that can feel cold to others is that emotional intensity. Like this person is so on their emotions, they can't even almost take a look up and see that the rest of us peasants in the room are also having a day. Um, so it can feel like they're a little bit selfish with the emphasis on how they feel about a thing. Also, couple that with their long processing times to move forward with that can feel like a lot to the other enneatypes in the room. Also, highlighting what's missing rather than focusing on the good. Like, I feel like the 4 is like the opposite of the 7. Like, 7s are toxic positivity central for sure. And the 4 is Debbie Downer Street often of, but here's all of the terrible things. Like, let's talk about the terrible things because the good things are already figured out. So, like, let's look over here. And that can feel really heavy to a lot of enneatypes. And then also pulling away when they feel misunderstood. So, kind of ostracizing themselves from the group when they feel like they're being misunderstood or taken for granted. So I would say for a 4, taking that moment to say, this is super important to me. I'm not attacking you or the project or whatever, and then continue down your path of explanation, right? But really laying out that you are so emotionally invested to this because it's important to you, but that you are not invested in attacking the person or the project or the thing that you're discussing can definitely help soften the blow for the other enneatypes, but that's probably going to feel a little bit cold to you because that may feel like it lacks the emotional depth that you're really comfortable in hitting. But just taking a moment to say, like, this is what it is. I'm not attacking, but here is the direction. So, just like Janessa said, being very clear of, yep, this is really heavy. However, this is what we're going to do in the moving forward. Moving into our Enneagram 5s, we're at the head points now, where I feel comfortable. Yeah. Micro behaviors of the Enneagram 5 that can feel cold to others is silence, of course. Like you guys are the kings and queens of silence. Limited facial expressions. Like I've noticed that with the Enneagram 5s in my life, as well as delayed responses, fact focused replies, no emotion, but also the physical withdrawal of literally removing themselves physically from the room, the call, the whatever, so that they can really recharge. The 5 probably thinks, well, I just need space to process. I'm not trying to be cold, right? But the other enneatypes can interpret that as you're rejecting me, you're disengaged, you don't care, you're withholding information. So that suspicious distance that an Enneagram 6 could pick up on with the Enneagram 5s. 5s really regulate through conserving their energy, though, but that silence without reassurance can definitely feel like abandonment to a lot of the enneatypes that are not 5s. So the simple statement of, I'm thinking, I'm still here, and that's it. Just 2 sentences to prevent that misinterpretation of detachment or not caring or not being present. Um, and that could probably feel cold to an Enneagram 5 that you have to state something that is so factual. It should just be common sense, probably, is what you're registering that as. But letting the people in the room know that you're processing, just giving them that like upfront warning of, I'm thinking, I'm still here and I'm still present. I just need some time to digest that.
Yeah, I think that the five wing fours and the five wing sixes present so differently. So when I watch the two, I actually feel a little bit challenged to explain the five through this
Mhm.
lens here today because I do think they're really different. I see the five wing six really embrace the engaging conversation of the six or asking all of the questions, right? So it's their little mini research process and they're asking you instead of Google or whatnot. But there's so many questions I notice um, that can lead, especially for me being an Enneagram 1, back into that loop of explaining or over explaining myself, where I feel like the fours are a little more outgoing and less reserved than the fives, where I
Mhm.
think the five wing fours will lean in to conversation more than the typical when we just talk about the five and that characteristic of withdrawing.
Mhm.
But that for sure is what I am also approaching here in this conversation of what does make them seem cold to other people because they can need so much time to recharge, um, really are so sensitive to intrusion, whether that be energetically, mentally, emotionally, from other people, that even if someone's over emoting, a five could have a hard time holding space and instead just want to withdraw from that or not know what to say and just be very awkward. Um, they do their processing internally, of course. And so, what will really help the Enneagram fives growth edge is if they embrace stating their conclusions without over researching. And of course, this is coming through that lens of how are they showing up in a conflict for me specifically with what I'm talking about here today in leadership. So, a five in a leadership role is going to want to take the time to research and find out all of the things when they will likely say, I need more time to think about this thing, which is really interesting because an Enneagram 5 that I work with, they always want someone else to make a quick decision. They want to have access to that person. They want the decision right away.
Mhm.
But I know that they are only there themselves when they've had time to do all of the research behind the scenes, which they probably did off the clock the night before, so that they could come prepared for the topic at hand. I see this in the workplace quite a little, so I think it's funny and ironic. Where they in leadership will want more time to think about a situation, which is really to research it. What they can say instead is based upon what we know now, just working with what they have to reference currently. This is the direction we're going. And to the five, it's going to feel premature. And so it's going to be very unnatural in that manner, but it's going to build trust in their leadership presence that they can make a decision, move in that direction. And if they need to pivot, then they can embrace that Enneagram 7 that they have access to to be able to pivot down the road where they need to. So, moving into our type 6, the loyalist. And the sixes, they have a sensitivity to uncertainty. The unpredictability doesn't give them the security that they would like. They love guarantees. They are exceptional at risk detection and preparedness, and anticipating outcomes is what they will bypass in all the time they spend evaluating worst case scenario over and over and over. So, with conflict and how they show up in leadership and what may come off as being cold, they really need to embrace making a call without consensus because, of course, they like to ask everyone what they would do in situations when they can and collect that data. And in their scanning for risk, they're also scanning for group security when they're working with a group of individuals to see where those liabilities land. So instead of questioning, what does everyone think about this? Are we sure? What would you do? What would you like to do? Just owning, I've assessed the risk because you have, even if it feels like you haven't enough yet, you have assessed the risk. Like, let's just state that and own it. So I've assessed the risks and we're moving forward. And so because it will feel like you haven't had every contingency plan possibly like completely mapped out, it's going to feel unsafe for you. It's not going to have the security that you're going to want, but it's going to create the psychological safety for others in the workplace around you or in the team that you're leading or your family, if you're leading your family, to have this clear direction that they know where they're moving toward.
Yeah, definitely that all of that with sixes. And, if just making the decision feels too cold for you to start with, like baby steps again, too, of a simple statement of, I'm asking this because I want stability, not control. So sometimes sixes, when they go down that road of 5 million questions, it can feel like they're trying to control somebody rather than trying to find that like stability. So just taking that moment to say, like, I'm actually not seeking control at all. I'm just trying to find the safest path forward for us will help lessen a little bit of that blow too. The micro behaviors of the Enneagram sixes that can show up as cold for the other Enneatypes is asking repetitive questions because it feels like maybe you don't trust our answers or trust us as individuals. Also, highlighting risks over and over and over again. Tone tightening can happen, but also testing loyalty. Sixes do this very interesting tactic of testing loyalty over and over in their relationships, whether they be familial, interpersonal, or professional. So that testing of the loyalty can definitely feel very cold to other individuals. While the Enneagram 6 probably is just thinking, I'm just trying to protect us, or I'm just trying to find the safest path for us. The other Enneatypes can interpret those behaviors as you don't trust me, you're slowing momentum, you're escalating tension, maybe even moving into you like drama with those testing behaviors that can show up. Um, yes. So that's for the Enneagram sixes. So just taking a moment, like Janessa said, and just making a decision rather than polling the audience. That's going to feel super cold to you. But I guarantee if you're the only Enneagram 6 in the room, you have weighed the pros and the cons and documented all of the risks far more in depth than any of the rest of us have. So if you are making a decision based off of risk, then absolutely you should just make the decision and move forward. And don't worry, if you have a good old 7, 8, 1 in the room, they'll tell you if you're wrong. So no fear there. Moving into our Enneagram sevens, we have about 3 minutes left, but we've covered a lot of the sevens, I feel like, already within the other Enneatypes throughout this show. The micro behaviors that can show up as for an Enneagram 7 is genuinely saying, I don't care about how you feel right now. Like we're pretty direct with our coldness for sure. Reframing things super quickly, joking during tension, changing topics, offering alternatives immediately, wanting to move to solutioning rather than hearing the person out for their experience, just being over any emotional tax that the others would like to pay. We don't want to pay emotional tax. We don't, yuck, no taxes. Free us from taxes. Um, the 7 probably thinks I'm keeping this light and I'm just trying to move forward to a solution, but others can definitely interpret that as you're dismissing my reality, you're unreliable, you're irresponsible, or you're emotionally unavailable. All of which might honestly be true in certain aspects of the Enneagram 7. I feel like this is one where our coldness can also be factual reality too. All of those things can definitely be real for the Enneagram 7. Now, a 7 likes to regulate by moving away from discomfort. We don't really like pain, but that speed without presence feels like emotional absence and like we genuinely just are completely emotionally inept of emotional intelligence for sure. Also, the way that we can move into a better integration that's going to feel cold, don't say shit. Don't say anything. No words, no thoughts, no solutions. Quiet presence is what I would recommend for an Enneagram 7 that is going to feel really cold. So if you need a baby step, maybe a simple phrase of, I know this is uncomfortable and I'm not trying to skip it. So I'm going to give you 7 minutes and then I'll see where I'm at after 7 minutes, right? Because sometimes it is too much for us if somebody is lamenting about the emotional tax and toll. So, not getting rid of your own authenticity, because I don't want you sitting there when you genuinely don't care, because that's going to be read by the room too. But giving a timeline that you are committing to actually being emotionally present can soften that coldness that you might feel with that straight up, just don't say anything and be present.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to the Enneagram 7. I feel like you are the 7. We talked about the 7. And if you want to rewind to the Enneagram 3, what she said with the 3 and the growth edge is really what I have for the 7. just moving directly to the solution prematurely. So, with that, we're really at the top of the hour. And just to wrap up, really quick rundown. What we talked about here today is about how conflict looks behavioral on the surface. That's what you see, but it's actually underneath that energetically. And the ways that that occurs for the ones is over explaining to protect their fairness, twos cushion to protect connection, threes will reframe to protect their image. Four leans into emotion to protect depth. Five withholds to protect certainty. Sixes scan to protect safety. Sevens pivot to protect their optimism. Eight, they intensify to protect control. And nine delays to protect harmony. So, really, underneath all of this, we're all just humans trying to keep ourselves safe in some sort of way, protect ourselves. And what that leads to is not the clarity or firmness or directness that allows you to thrive as a leader. So hopefully you can take the action items, some of the new things that we suggested saying, and start applying them right away and see how that builds your credibility, the respect of your teams. And if you want to take this even deeper, inside Stronger Together, we don't approach the Enneagram just from a personality improvement plan or from this conscious space of being able to see it and then willpowering your way through it. We don't try to just cognitively recondition our thoughts into better behavior. We interrupt the patterns at the level they were created. And what that creates are profound shifts in shorter timelines that you never expected to happen. It's advanced pattern interruption methods with nervous system recalibration, identity level integration that leads to real time embodiment. It's taking it from your mind and living it through your action and your body. So the result is you stop white knuckling your growth, you stop managing perception, over functioning to feel secure. You lead conversations without rehearsing them for hours, unless you're an Enneagram 1, you might still do that. You'll hold your boundaries without the guilt spirals, or make decisions without pulling everyone in the room to see what they would do. So it's really not about becoming a different personality. It's about becoming unhooked from the automatic defenses that have been running your life. So if you're ready to stop coping at a high level and start leading at a regulated one, Stronger Together is where that work happens. And we would love to have you in the room. You can visit www.strongertogetherinstitute.com for more and to claim your seat. And until next time, keep your eyes wide open.